Welcome to the City Planning Review Session, and I apologize for starting a few minutes late. But, Madam Secretary, we are gathered, so please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, March 7, 2016, and a quorum is present. This is the City Planning Commission review session. First item on the agenda is a proposed special bulk permit to facilitate a mixed-use building on a through lot between West 17th and 18th Streets, 5th and 6th Avenues in Manhattan. And our presenter is Beverly Jimenez Calavera from the Manhattan office.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod and Commission members. The applicant, 42 West 18th Street Corp., is seeking a special permit pursuant to Section 74-711 to modify the bulk regulations affecting property at 3842 West 18th Street and 4143 West 17th Street. The proposed project is located on 3 tax lots, lots 14, 15, and 66, which are part of the same zoning lot and are bounded by West 17th Street and West 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. These properties are situated within the Ladies Mile Historic District and within the C64A zoning district. Lot 14 is a 4,600 square foot through lot with 25 feet of frontage on West 17th Street and West 18th Street. The existing historic building on this lot is 6 stories, a 6-story commercial building built in 1907 as a loft and a store. This 6 FAR building contains commercial uses and will remain and be restored. Lot 66 is in the middle of the zoning lot, and it is a 2,100 square foot lot which has 25 feet frontage on West 18th Street. It contains an existing 4-story commercial building, which is a 3.47 FAR, that will be enlarged as part of the proposed project. The 4-story historic building was originally built as a dwelling in 1865 and was converted to commercial use in the 1890s. The building, which currently contains commercial uses, will remain and be restored. Lot 15 is the development site, and it is a 7,100 square foot lot, and it is an irregularly L-shaped through lot with 25 feet of frontage on West 18th Street and 50 feet of frontage on West 17th Street. The lot is currently used as an at-grade parking lot for 54 vehicles. This lot will be developed with a 16-story building. This lot will be developed with a 16-story building segment fronting on West 17th Street and a 17-story segment fronting on West 18th Street. Both portions of the new building will have commercial and residential uses. The site is zoned C64A, which allows commercial, residential, and community facility uses with a base FAR of 10 and is bonusable to 12 with inclusionary housing. The C64A district within the Ladies Mile Historic District allows an overall building height of 185 feet and allows a street wall to exceed a maximum base height of 125 feet up to 150 feet on a narrow street. The proposed developments on lots 66 and 15 are the subject of this application for waivers. The depth of the block between 17th and 18th Street is 184 feet. The proposed project includes the construction of a new building on lot 15, the enlargement of an existing building on lot 66, and the restoration of the facades of existing buildings on lots 66 and 14. Additionally, as shown to you in the first drawing in red, The existing building on Lot 66 will be altered by removing 184 square feet of floor area from the ground floor. A 3-story enlargement would be constructed on that lot, and the building on Lot 66 would fully occupy the tax lot, and this is what you're looking at. The enlargement to the building on Lot 66 will total 438 square feet and will result into a net increase in floor area of 292 square feet of retail and storage space in the existing building, which will continue to contain commercial uses. So the yellow would be the additional 3 stories of commercial in the rear of the lot, and the yellow, the last drawing shows the new building and the 2 wings, the south wing and the north wing with commercial in the middle. The applicant intends to develop an approximately 84,024 square foot mixed-use building containing 68,097 square feet of residential use, which would provide 66 units of market rate housing, approximately 15,296 square feet of commercial space, a below-grade parking garage with 17 accessory parking spaces, and 39 bicycle parking spaces. Lot 15 will generate 71,000 square feet of floor area. The building will utilize approximately 13,024 square feet of unused development rights from the remainder of the zoning lot. At completion, the zoning lot will contain 118,831 square feet of development, and they will achieve an 8.6 FAR. The proposed building would have a residential lobby on West 17th Street and on West 18th Street. Parking access and egress would be from West 17th Street. There is a separate entrance on West 17th Street for ground floor retail uses. Lot 14 has an entrance on Lot 17th and an entrance on 18th Street as well. And Lot 66 has one entrance on 18th Street. So again, the building will consist of a north and south wing. The north wing will front on 18th Street. The wings will be connected by a 3-story base. The south wing will, with a frontage of 50 feet on West 17th Street, will be 16 stories and 166 feet tall in height with no front setback. The north wing, with the frontage of 25 feet on West 18th Street, will be 17 stories and 170 feet in height with no front setback. The building height of the south wing will comply with the C64A district maximum building height provisions for a narrow street, while the north wing will extend above the permitted height for a narrow building on a narrow street in a C64A district. The building will have a 3-story base, which will contain a separate residential lobby for each wing, ground floor local retail use on the first floor, access from 17th Street, and office and retail use on the second and third floors, access from West 17th Street. Both north and south wing facades will include a full-height glass frontage at the ground floor. The entrance to the below-grade automated parking garage will also be accessed from West 17th Street. The south wing of the building will rise without setback in the maximum permitted height and will not provide the required front or rear setbacks at 125 feet. The 3-story commercial base will exceed the permitted height of 23 feet for rear yard obstructions. A rear yard equivalent of 50 feet will be provided between the 2 wings. The 17-story north wing of the building will exceed the 60-foot permitted height of a narrow building on a 60-foot wide block. Heights along West 17th Street vary. The shorter buildings on the block range in height from 75 to 77 feet high. Lot 14 is 76 feet tall. The medium height buildings are approximately 125 feet on 17th Street. Then there are several buildings that range from 148 to 200 feet in height. The proposed street wall on West 17th Street would reach 166 feet. The elevations, the heights on West 18th Street, there are several shorter buildings on West 18th Street, and Lot 14 is 76 feet tall, and then there are those that range from 30 to 48 feet. Lot 66 is 48 feet in height. The taller buildings on the block range from 153 to 180 feet in height. The proposed street wall will rise to 170 feet. The proposed development would require a special permit pursuant to Section 74-711 of the zoning resolution for development within the historic district to allow for 4 waivers. The applicant is seeking base height and setback waiver, rear yard setback waiver, rear yard waiver, and minimum distance between windows waiver. The maximum permitted base height in a C64A zoning district is 125 feet, above which a 15-foot setback is required. The requested waivers would modify the front wall so that it may rise without setback above the maximum base height of 125 feet on West 17th Street. The building's West 18th Street wall would exceed the maximum height of 60 feet allowed for a building with less than 45 feet of frontage on a narrow street. The West 18th Street facade would rise to 170 feet without setback. Above 125 feet, a 10-foot rear yard setback is required. The building's West 17th Street facade will rise to full building height without the required 10 feet setback. The zoning resolution permits an obstruction in the rear yard of 1 story and requires on a through lot a rear yard equivalent of 60 feet. The building's commercial space will be located within the rear yard equivalent at the center of the zoning lot, and it's represented by the pink. The upper 2 floors are not permitted obstruction. In addition to the West 17th Street frontage wall, the wall will encroach into the rear yard equivalent by 10 feet, resulting in 50 feet of rear yard equivalent. The block on which the development site is located is only 184 feet in depth, in comparison to 200 feet that is typical of a standard Manhattan block. According to the applicant, given the shallow depth of the block, the proposed rear yard waiver will allow the construction of a building that provides usable floor plates for residential use. The minimum required distance between buildings is 60 feet on a single zoning lot. The buildings on West 17th Street and 18th Street will have a distance of 50 feet between them. According to the applicant, this will allow for building footprints that provide usable floor plates for residential use. The maximum permitted height for a building with less than 45 feet of frontage on a narrow street is 60 feet. The north building will rise to 170 feet. Pursuant to Section 74-711, in all districts for zoning lots containing a landmark designated by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, or for zoning lots with existing buildings located within a historic district designated by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the City Planning Commission may permit modifications of the use and the bulk regulations except FAR regulations, provided that such bulk modifications shall have minimal adverse effects on the structures or open space in the vicinity in terms of scale, location, and access to light and air. The proposed waivers would have no adverse impact on structures or open space in the vicinity, according to the applicant. The design of the proposed building facades, as approved by the Landmarks Preservation Commission, will provide a street wall that is consistent with many mid-block buildings on West 17th and West 18th Streets between 5th and 6th Avenues, and that now rise over 150 feet without setback. According to the applicant, the rear yard waivers requested will minimally be visible from the street and will have no impact on the scale, location, and structures and light and air of the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you, Beverly. Questions? Mr. Knuckles?
Throughout the various amendments and extensions, has there been a constant owner, or has the site changed hands? Because this came before us back in
This,
'04.
this is the same owner.
Same owner?
Right, but there were a couple of renewals that expired,
Right.
and the commission approved this, a similar project, from my understanding, a while ago.
Ms. Delausse, then Ms. Efron.
Beverly, you might have mentioned this, but maybe I didn't hear it. Has this already been reviewed? So has the restoration plan for the facades been reviewed by LPC?
Yes.
Okay. And so this developer is not utilizing their full square footage that they're permitted.
That's
There's about
correct.
20,000 square feet. So I assume since they're not using 20,000 square feet, that they're also not interested in inclusionary housing?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Ms. Efron?
That was part of my question exactly, too. I guess I'm very sensitive to the sliver building aspect of the north facade. And I guess I'd like some clarification on the history of this. The original proposal seems to have been approved in January 2004, which seems to have been similar to this. But it looks as if in June of 2004, there was a rezoning of a 5.5 block area in which this is, so it sounds as if the commission has, at least fairly recently and subsequent to the initial approval of this, reviewed these blocks and decided not to increase the height for the very side on 18th Street that this is now proposing to.
Well, the original application was submitted while the area was an M district, and it then changed to the C64A, which allowed the residential to be as of right.
But it didn't change the maximum height.
No.
So I just bring this up because it does seem a little, the dates seem very important.
The moment you leave the building, they have no respect for you anymore. That's all I can say. Ms. Levin?
Well, if that's all it is, although I'm mindful of the days when this building used to empty out on about 20 seconds, when a sound like that went off. So I hope we don't have to worry.
Let's hope that's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. So is this the same design as 2004? Has the design changed?
I can't answer that right now, I'm not sure.
Okay, because I noticed that the one thing that concerns me here is the distance between the two towers. You know, the normal, the rule of thumb, the rule of zoning is that it's supposed to be 60 feet in order to provide light and air. I mean, the zoning resolution doesn't say this, but I think the idea is that so the rear apartments or commercial space will have adequate light and air. And I noticed from reading the 2004 report that the original plan had been to narrow that to 40 feet, and that this commission was skeptical about that, and the upshot, the design that was approved had the same 50, well, I don't know if it's the same, because I don't know if it's the same design, but had a 50-foot distance between the two buildings, which still doesn't seem ideal if you're living in one of those rear apartments. And I guess,
But it's consistent with what's being proposed.
okay, and is that consistent with what we have approved? I was surprised to
It appears to
discover
be.
that this stretch of blocks, and I think it's not just this block, but it's sort of up and down the Ladies Mile area, has unusually narrow blocks. And so my question is whether there have been similar development situations where we have allowed a shorter distance between the two towers. I mean,
Something
is
we
this a
can check.
precedent or not? Okay.
May I make one more comment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that right?
I forgot something I had been thinking of. There's almost a sense in reading the proposed new version of what might be the same plan or a different plan, that the north and south tower, that there's some symmetry and that somehow matters. But I just think it's important to note that these will never be seen at the same time.
That's true.
Okay.
Any other questions? And we'll get back to you on the distance between buildings. Certified. Thank you.
Let's now advance to item number 2, page 56, proposed zoning map amendment to establish a C22 district over an existing R31 district. And our presenter is Stephen Everett from the Queen's Office for on item number 2, page 56.
Yes, before Stephen starts, let me just note, I think you all got the emails that Stephen sent you regarding this application. And as you know, the application was submitted to us without showing that the parking lot for which they are currently seeking approval was actually already built. And in fact, that the application showed essentially a vacant lot. You know, it's not unheard of for us to get an application seeking to legalize something that has previously been built, but it is highly unusual for us to get an application with false information on it. And I'm just want to note that I am deeply disturbed by seeing this kind of application, and you have the explanations of both the applicant and the applicant's attorney in front of you. And so it speaks for itself. And with that, Stephen, you can present it.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Idle Lots LLC filed an application to rezone a portion of one block located at the intersection of 227th Street and 145th Road in Brookville, Queens Community District 13. It would facilitate the development of a public parking lot of approximately 25 spaces. The project area is located in R31 zoning district, established in 2004 as a result of the city planning-sponsored Brookville rezoning. Prior to 2004, the area was zoned R32. The project area consists of 2 tax lots within block 13484. Lot 1, which is at the intersection of 227th Street and 145th Road, is approximately 10,000 square feet in area, and it's immediately adjacent to Lot 36, which is approximately 2,000 square feet in area. East of the project area, the block is developed with two-family residences with frontage on 145th Road. And north of the project area, the block is developed with a DEP-owned former Jamaica Water Supply Company above-ground water tank, which has been decommissioned and would not be impacted by the proposed rezoning. There are also currently no known plans to reopen that facility. The surrounding area is characterized primarily by residential and manufacturing uses within a 600-foot radius. On the southwest side of 145th Road, there's an M11 district with three buildings owned by the applicant. The block to the east of the project area, on the east side of 228th Street, which is here, is improved with it has a C13 overlay. It's improved with one-story attached buildings, including a deli, a beauty salon, and a house of worship. The remainder of the 600-foot radius around the project area is improved with small 1- and 2-family residential buildings in the R31 zoning district. Immediately south of the project area, as I mentioned previously, are 3 buildings owned by the applicant. The applicant acquired the 2 buildings on the western block, block 13474, in 2012 and has since renovated them. One is occupied by a Verizon garage used for the operations of trucks and equipment. The other is a warehouse with 5 logistics and freight forwarding facilities. And east of 227th Street is another building owned by the applicant. It was completed in 2014 and is also fully occupied with 5 logistics and freight forwarding facilities and provides all required parking on site. The applicant designed these 2 buildings to accommodate truck loading on 227th Street to mitigate impact on surrounding communities, and has since installed a solar voltaic panel on the rooftops of both of these structures. Additionally, the applicant acquired the lot at the southeast corner of block 13475 down here in 2013 and has a certificate of occupancy for a parking of a maximum of 24 vehicles. The filed application originally stated the property is vacant and unimproved, and the photographs showed an overgrown site with a plywood fence along both 145th Road and 227th Street. City planning discovered the existing conditions when I visited the site. And we also learned that the applicant professionally certified permits with Department of Buildings to install a sidewalk along 227th Street, permits to clean and regrade the lot, clean and regrade the lot to control stormwater runoff by installing drainage system, including catch basin and dry wells. As part of the regrading process, the site was excavated to remove and dispose of several tons of debris, and the area was paved with asphalt and striped for parking purposes. Additionally, the applicant professionally certified a Department of Buildings permit to install a curb cut on 145th Road. The permit for site regrading has been audited by DOB, and a notice to revoke has been issued. Additionally, consistent with protocol, DCP notified Department of Buildings regarding potential misuse of the property for parking purposes in a residence district. Department of Buildings will audit all permits and inspect the property. The applicant proposes one zoning map change, which is a rezoning from R31 to R31C22 to establish a commercial overlay at a block depth of 100 feet and a width of 120 feet on the project area. It's just north of the M11 district here. The C22 commercial overlay allows a maximum FAR for both commercial and community facility uses of 1.0. The maximum building height is governed by a sky exposure plane, which begins 30 feet above the street line. Because of the expansion in uses, rezoning from residential to residential with a commercial overlay, the site could be developed with commercial use building of approximately 5,100 square feet with on-site parking approximately 17 spaces. Though the rezoning would allow a development of such commercial use, the applicants propose a public parking lot of approximately 25 spaces located on both lots 1 and 36. Public parking lots are allowed in the C2 district at a maximum capacity of 150 spaces as of right. The site plan shown here is illustrative and would require Department of Buildings approval. The parking lot will be intended for public off-street parking purposes and will serve the existing commercial uses on 228th Street, as well as the logistics facilities located south of 145th Road. Parking area will be accessed by an approximately 27-foot wide existing curb cut on 145th Road, and the site is intended to reduce the number of on-street parking spaces occupied on the surrounding public streets. Finally, the applicant indicated that the lot will be attended but the fee structure to park has not yet been determined.
Thank you, Stephen. Questions? Ms. Efron?
How long did the applicant own this property? Because I was confused by something in either his letter or the lawyer's letter that said a lot of garbage had amassed, and that was one of the reasons why he emptied the lot. It was owned by him before the application, or at least as of the time of the application, wasn't it?
That is correct, but prior to that, the site was vacant and had been used for purposes of refuse. I mean, the site was vacant previously to the applicant acquiring it.
But is there any regulation that would prohibit somebody from taking garbage off of their site?
No.
No.
Ms. Delos?
Thanks for going over the ownership of the other properties that this particular owner has. So you mentioned that there's a parking lot, I'm just going to say south of one of the logistics buildings closer to 146th Avenue, that currently parks 24 vehicles. Is it possible to expand the parking on that existing parking lot, which is, I'm assuming that's a legal use on that site?
That's correct. So to be clear, the logistics facility already provides all of the required parking on its own zoning lot and excess parking. The additional parking lot is in excess of that. So there is all required parking, it's accounted for. This proposal would be in addition to that.
I guess where I'm going is, and, not knowing deeply all the parking requirements, but I'm just wondering if the additional 25 or so spaces could be accommodated through stackers on the other space rather than removing residential development possibilities across the street next to the DEP tank.
That might be possible, but
That's not what he wants.
right. So their proposal is actually not to remove residential development possibilities. It would still be R31 zoning district, just mapped with a commercial overlay.
I mean, the proposed zoning district still would allow residential use, and
Right.
whether the parking is temporary or
Right.
not, I mean, it's obviously a, parking is a traditional assemblage use for.
Right.
Mr. Reade?
I'm sorry, this is anticipated to be used for commercial parking, not for accessory parking, am I correct?
It is not accessory to
Right.
to these uses. It would be a public parking
It'll
lot.
be a public, right.
That's right.
Right, okay.
Ms. Levin?
But it would be a public parking lot because it has to be a public parking lot in order to meet the
Right.
requirements of that zoning designation. So, I mean,
For intents and purposes.
it does appear that it is an accessory in the layman's understanding of the term. And I guess I'm confused about why the owner of the logistics facility didn't make adequate provision for parking when they redeveloped the logistics facility. It's one thing to meet the zoning requirements for the number of spaces that are required, but obviously this operation requires more parking spaces even than that. And so when this comes back, I guess I would like to understand how many employees, how many come by car, where were they parking before they redeveloped the lot that's the subject of this application? What is the parking situation in the neighborhood? Why is this operationally necessary?
Certainly. So I can answer some of those questions now.
Okay.
On block 13474, in this facility, there are approximately 140 employees. And in the adjacent, across 27th Street, in this facility, there are approximately 93 employees. We can ask the applicant to be prepared to answer the questions about their additional parking needs. But I do know that in Southeast Queens, there has long been the concern of not enough street parking, that operations would otherwise take up parking that residents could use to park in front of their own homes.
This is paid parking now? As far as you-
I'm sorry,
What?
which parking?
Paid, people pay to park here, as far as you can tell? Or is it monthly, or is it free to the employees of logistics?
Well, it's not public. It's only for the employees of logistics facilities. I don't know if it's paid or not. Right, but parking on the 2 blocks here is not public.
Any other questions about this?
Not for now.
If not, it is certified, and it will wend its way back here somehow.
Yes. So let's now move to item number 3, page 65. It's a Queensbury hearing application with respect to a proposed city map amendment regarding Socrates Sculpture Park in Long Island City, Queens. We're on item number 3, page 65. And Stephen, I believe you're presenting this as well?
I am.
Great.
I'm changing hats.
Yes.
Happier.
Happier occasion.
Returning today for a pre-hearing review is an application by the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation seeking an amendment to the city map. The proposed amendment involves the establishment of Socrates Sculpture Park, the elimination of 2 city-owned mapped but unbuilt streets, and the establishment of public place in the Long Island City neighborhood of Queens Community District 1. The proposed amendment would officially establish a 6.35-acre Socrates Sculpture Park on the city map and would authorize the acquisition of 1 privately owned lot that will be incorporated into the established park. The project site is located on the East River waterfront and is bounded by Vernon Boulevard to the east, Costco to the south, the East River to the west, and sort of industrial property, commercial and industrial waterfront to the north. In addition to establishing Socrates Sculpture Park on the city map, the application also includes the elimination of portions of 2 city-owned mapped but unbuilt streets, the establishment of public place, and the acquisition of 1 privately owned lot that will be incorporated. The Broadway extension, which is here, is city-owned, mapped at a width of 75 feet, and is unimproved. It will be eliminated from the city map, and the northern portion will be mapped as parkland. That will be here. And the southern portion will be mapped as public place. That's here. 31st Avenue, here, is city-owned, mapped at a width of 80 feet, and is unimproved. It is also being eliminated from the city map and will be mapped as parkland. In connection with this mapping application, the city has entered into an agreement to acquire the privately owned Lot 31 in exchange for development rights attributable to the public place located on the southern half of Broadway Extension. Lot 31 is here. It has served the park as the entrance pursuant to an agreement with the private owner since 1996. Lot 31 will be mapped as parkland and will continue to serve as the entrance to the park. It will be developed with a new facility that will serve both educational and administration purposes for Socrates Sculpture Park staff. The development rights of the public place will be transferred to the adjacent Costco site, Block 313, Lot 1, here, which is also owned by the owner of Lot 31. There are currently no plans for any new development on the Costco site, but these development rights could be used in a future as-of-right development of the lot. Community Board 1 voted 40 in favor with 0 against and 0 abstaining to approve this application, and the Queensborough president also voted to approve the application.
So this will be a public hearing on Wednesday?
Correct.
Highly controversial. Any questions to Stephen about this? Ms. Ortiz?
Hi.
Hi.
When this came up earlier, we talked about, some of the desire to see a continuous public access along the waterfront, particularly given the fact that on the other side of Costco, we have open space. And at the Costco site, you have a promenade, and then we have Socrates Sculpture Park. Did that come up in the conversation? I'm surprised that, it wasn't mentioned.
To be honest, I don't know. I'm filling in today in this presentation, but Parks will address that on Wednesday.
Okay. Is there any ability to even, address that issue or bring that up at this time and have it be incorporated in this, or is it?
Well, I think this is a mapping application, but presumably, ultimately, I think there is a strong push and desire for waterfront access and an esplanade that really would go from Astoria Cove all the way along the waterfront, the East River waterfront. So ultimately, it would be, at least with respect to the Sculpture Park, presumably a capital investment by Parks, and then it would have to be connected with the Costco site at some point. It may well be something that would be done in tandem at some point when Costco is developed, but that's a question for
Well,
Parks when they're here.
the improvement here, I imagine, would be relatively minor because the promenade is already nearly connected to Socrates Sculpture Park. So, it wouldn't involve, significant improvements, and I wonder if that, is even worth exploring at this point. It's just such a low-hanging fruit.
We should ask Parks when they're here Wednesday. Ms. Levin?
Well, I was just going to observe that mapping it as park actually would help make that happen, because it becomes publicly available for that kind of a use, and then it's just a question of finding the capital and making the plans, but we will have done what we can do to allow it to happen. The other thing is, I think there's a sewer outfall at the end of the Broadway extension, so if you look at this site on Google Maps, you'll see that there's kind of a big indentation, and that, I think, at the review session, we were told was the major physical impediment at this point that would have to be dealt with.
Now.
And there is, as I recall, required, at least, publicly accessible open space on the Costco site too, although not developed at the moment.
But there is, that site, there's a promenade along the entire waterfront that has benches and
Right.
at this time. So they have done that, and it's there.
But my assumption is, this question to Parks, my assumption is that when Costco gets redeveloped, which inevitably it will, this will entirely be redone, because it would have to be consistent with our own waterfront access, right?
So that would be a requirement of the redevelopment too.
As a waterfront site? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Stephen? Thanks.
Let's now move to item number 4, page 74, proposed special use permit to facilitate a nursing home in the Weeksville neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 8. It's a Brooklyn pre-hearing item back from Community Board and Borough President Review. Item number 4, page 74. Our presenter is Brian Dennis of the Brooklyn office.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. So this application comes back after certification on November 16th. The applicant, Buffalo Avenue Realty Associates, requests a special permit pursuant to zoning resolution section 7490 to change the use of the former St. Mary's Hospital into a 281-bed nursing home. So, and this, the site that's in question is here on Lot 1 of Block 3662. So the site's located in the Weeksville section of Weeksville neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, bounded by St. Mark's Avenue to the north, Prospect Place to the south, and Buffalo Avenue to the east. Land use in the area is characterized with single and multifamily residential developments of 2 to 5 stories in height, with mixed-use residential, commercial, and public facility buildings. The site is mapped R6. Within the R6 district are C13 and C23 commercial overlays that are mapped along Utica Avenue, Ralph, and Buffalo Avenue. And these commercial overlays provide ground floor commercial retail serving local residents. The area is served by mass transit with the A and C trains at Fulton Street and Utica Avenue, and the 3 and 4 trains at the Crown Heights Utica Avenue station. There is also a network of buses, including the B47 running along Ralph Avenue and the B65 running along Bergen Street. Public facilities and institutions in the surrounding area include the Weeksville Heritage Center. Which is located right here. The Kingsborough NYCHA Housing Development on the Superblock 1344. And also the Office for Community Board 8, which is across the street from the site on the St. Mark's side, which is located right here, that purple-looking lot. The site is improved with a 7-story Use Group 4 hospital building containing approximately 176,000 square feet of floor area. The building rises to a height of 82 feet without any setback. Per BSA special permit, the structure's north and south facade is permitted to penetrate the applicable sky exposure plane, which begins at 60 feet above the street line. The main entrance of the former hospital is along Buffalo Avenue, with the emergency entrance along Prospect, as you can see in picture 2. The loading area or the dock area can be found along St. Mark's Avenue, which is the north side along here. And the open plaza, pic 4, shows the back side of the hospital. And in the last picture here are the ProMark condominiums, which are aligned along the Prospect Avenue side along here and the St. Mark's side. These condominiums are not a part of the project site. So just to quickly refresh you on the background of the St. Mary's Hospital and the site. So St. Mary's Hospital campus opened in 1882 with a 6-story building. And in 1975, the Board of Standards and Appeals granted a special permit to allow for the construction of a new and taller structure. That's the current 7-story building. After closing in 2005 due to financial difficulties, the hospital was sold to Matzell Group, LLC, in 2006. This group subdivided the entire block into Lot 1 and Lot 50. Lot 50 was further subdivided for condo development, while the hospital, located on Lot 1, remained closed. Buffalo Avenue Realty Associates, the applicant of this action, purchased the lot in 2014. The proposed action will facilitate the establishment of a Use Group 3 nursing home that will contain 281 beds. Though the use change of the building does not include any modification to the bulk, the interior and exterior of the building will be renovated. And some of the renovations include changing of the windows and facade materials to soften the building's appearance, redesigning the plaza as an outdoor recreation area with new trees, landscaping, tables, and seating, buffering off of the parking lot and plaza with 7-foot-high evergreens and solid decorative fencing, refurbishing existing planters and adding more greenery and bench seating along the 3 frontage, as you can see along here. The applicant proposes to design the nursing home to be a self-contained environment with many of the residents' services, such as meals, healthcare, entertainment, and leisure occurring on-site. The first floor of the nursing home facility will house the administrative office, a new nursing unit dedicated to short-term rehabilitation and occupational and physical therapy suite. Most patients will be seen by a doctor within the facility. Certain services, such as X-ray, will be brought in. And if patients need to go out for medical care, the CHC, or the hospital, the nursing home will provide transportation in the form of that ambulance service. Additionally, the applicant is also concurrently seeking a modification to the existing BSA application that was approved in 1975, which is required to facilitate this proposed project. The applicant is seeking a BSA variance to allow the building to maintain existing bulk while introducing the nursing home use. The BSA application is currently being reviewed by the chair, and there will potentially be a hearing this coming spring. So in order for the special permit to be granted pursuant to 7490, the City Planning Commission must make the following findings: that the architectural treatment made to the building allows for it to blend within the surrounding community, and that the proposed nursing home use will not place any burden on supportive services and street traffic conditions in the neighborhood. So now for the public review and comment. On January 7th, Community Board 8 held a public hearing, and on January 14th, they recommended their unanimous approval with conditions, voting 30 in favor, none against, and no abstentions. However, the conditions are as followed: that several homeowners of the ProMart condominiums complained of poor drainage issues stemming from the 60-foot wide lot extension, specifically this lot extension here, flanking both sides of the condos. So under extreme heavy rain, a few of the basements for the homeowners gets flooded. Also, an easement is needed to provide ProMark homeowners the opportunity, the access to move their garbage from the backyards where their refuse are contained to the front for sanitation pickup. So the applicant responded to the conditions from CB8 with a letter of intent, and also CB8 followed up on the letter of intent, and both letters are included in the briefing package. On January 28th, the Brooklyn Borough President held a public hearing on the application and recommended that the City Planning Commission and City Council approve the proposed land use action, but offered several suggestions: that the applicant seek to retain local-based and minority women-owned enterprises, that they commit to hiring locally and support internship efforts and provide quarterly updates to CB8 and local elected officials to demonstrate their monitoring, that they explore the possibility of installing sidewalk extensions at the corner of Buffalo Avenue, Prospect Place, and St. Mark's, and that they explore the possibility of installing bioswales, permeable pavers, combined heating and power or cogeneration systems using NYSERDA's matching contribution program. Lastly, that they provide updates to the borough president on the execution of the easement agreement and the design and construction of the site drainage improvements. On November 16th, a few of you asked some questions concerning the special permit, and I'll just quickly review. The applicant responded to them. The first question related to the size of the nursing home rooms. I believe that was asked by Commissioner Cantor. So the average size of a one-bedroom would be 216 square feet. The average size of a two-bedroom nursing home would be, two-bedroom would be 443 square feet. The unit sizes are determined by state regulations for nursing homes. The second question related to the lot extension. And so essentially, there's a restrictive declaration placed over the lot extension, and that was done in 2007. This restrictive declaration prevents or prohibits any construction or development of any permanent structure or dwelling on the portion of lot. And the last question concerned the streetscape experience and the use of the ground floor nursing home. And I touched upon that earlier, but essentially the existing planters along the site's three frontages would be refurbished and enhanced with additional plantings and site furnishings to liven the streetscape and better connect to the community. And on the first floor of the nursing home facility, it will house the administrative offices and new nursing units dedicated to short-term rehabilitation and occupational therapy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Questions? Ms. Efron.
It's slightly outside the scope, but it would be helpful. If ZQA goes through, they would not have needed to come before us. But if ZQA goes through, does the parking lot then become, is the parking lot required, or is it by choice that they have it? And if ZQA goes through, would they be able to build in that parking lot without coming back before us?
I'd have to get back to you on that question. I have to figure that out.
We know if ZQA goes through, then they wouldn't have to come back with the use
But it's just now about the other
permit.
parking.
The parking.
But it's a nursing home, not a senior,
Right.
right?
Right. So I think the answer is you probably wouldn't be able to build on the parking lot, but
Would?
would not.
Would not. Right.
Mrs. Deluz?
So you're saying in 2007, there's a restrictive declaration for the extension portion, which is also the portion that the two condominiums are most concerned about because of drainage, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And right now, the developer, it's just going to be a landscaped area.
That's right. And buffered off with plantings from the condominiums.
Is there anything that prevents the developer for exploring selling that area to the adjacent condominiums so they can just extend their yards? Since they're not really using it anyway?
Yeah, I don't see anything that would prevent them, but on Wednesday.
I can ask that
You
question?
can ask.
Okay.
The miracle of the public hearing. You get to actually ask. Any other questions for Brian? Okay, public hearing on Wednesday. Thank you, Brian.
Not that they have the money.
So Commissioners, in addition to the hearings on Wednesday, staff have prepared favorable resolutions for the following, including 233 Broadway office space for the Law Department, 33 Whitehall office space for the Department of Sanitation, 704 Ocean Terrace, which involves a certification that no authorization is required in the Special Natural Area District of Staten Island for residential development. We have 30 Everton Avenue, which involves a future subdivision in the Special South Richmond Development District. We have 4663 Palisade Avenue, which is an authorization concerning modification of topographic features, botanical environment to facilitate an enlargement to a single-family home. And we have the proposed disposition via lease to facilitate the TWA Flight Center Hotel in Queens. And then, assuming there are no concerns, moving on to March 30th, we have the proposed Woodlawn rezoning, which involves a zoning map amendment to establish an R4A district in Bronx Community District 12.
Just a question.
Yes.
On the TWA was something I thought of after the meeting. Would the hotel be subject to the city's hotel and occupancy tax based on the fact that it's a Port Authority site and not a New York City site? It's a sublease, it's actually under the domain of Port Authority. Did we get clarification?
I'm looking at council and,
So the answer from council, she can say it out loud, but the answer from council is that not directly. There probably is a pilot between.
No, the pilot
EDC.
would be for the hotel real estate taxes.
But usually what EDC does is sort of.
I'm
wrap it
asking
all
if,
in.
if consumers using the hotel, when in New York City, there's a hotel and an occupancy tax.
Yeah,
They would be subject to the
Yeah.
tax.
yeah.
Got it.
Right,
different questions.
Got it.
right.
Okay.
For example, I'll tell you offline. Any other questions? Okay, see you all on Wednesday, and we are adjourned.